Last week, we began studying the dual revolutions model. Starting with the industrial age, we saw how steel, trains, and coal created a kind of positive feedback loop. We observed how the field of scientific management, the grandfather of all future management fields like time management, project management, knowledge management, was birthed by thinkers like Henry Foyle and Winslow Taylor. Recognizing that the playing field had substantially changed, they pioneered the tasks of developing a comprehensive workflow to ride the wave of the second industrial revolution. How has this pattern repeated itself in the information age? How can we apply that historical lesson of the industrial age to our own times? Let's now examine the first and second digital revolutions within the information age. Maybe by discerning the modern equivalents of steel, trains, and coal, we can restore a state of synergy in our own age. Let's start with a whirlwind tour of the first digital revolution. Historians date the beginning of the information age around the 1950s, many pointing to the development of the transitor in 1947 as the pivotal point. 1959, Peter Drucker publishes The Landmarks of Tomorrow, in which he coins the term knowledge work. His second classic, The Effective Executive, is released in 1967. 4 years later, Intel releases the 4004, the first commercial single-chip microprocessor. 10 years later, IBM launches personal computers, or PCs. We really can see a slow swell beginning to form here. Email enters the scene in the 80s, and classic works like Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that's published in 89. 1991 is a huge year in which the World Wide Web becomes publicly accessible, digital cell phones start being sold commercially, and knowledge management is formally established as a field of study. In 95, ThinkPad becomes a cool kid on the block with its totally not dorky 701. 96 is the Palm Pilot, 98 the iMac, 99 personal knowledge management acquires a foothold with Jason Frand and Carol Hickson's paper, Personal Knowledge Management, Who, What, Why, When, Where, and How. From the perspective of workflow, the first digital revolution closes with David Allen publishing his seminal work, Getting Things Done, in 2001. While the technological developments just listed were truly new and significant, the change they created for the average consumer is insignificant compared to the second digital revolution. Sure, you had personal computers, but they were slow and bulky. I still remember crowding around my dad's DOS with my brothers, playing Oregon Trail and Civilization 1. These were new and exciting experiences. I remember when my dad first brought home a laptop from work, we were mesmerized by it. There were these goofy music videos preloaded on it as these like demos, and we watched those stupid videos over and over and over again. But that's the point. All of this existed, but it felt special. It felt rare. This all changes in 2007 with 3 major developments. The majority of US houses having broadband internet, Apple releasing the iPhone, and the viral spreading of social media. This is where I argue the second digital revolution began. I still remember how painfully slow dial-up internet was. Sure, I could theoretically access new volumes of information on my family's PC, but only if it was text or I had a wide open day for a page with images to load. Don't even think about videos. We couldn't recognize it at the time, but this profoundly impacted how we engaged with the internet because there was so much friction around the process. Beyond it being extremely slow, you were holding up the rest of the family from, using the phone, for example. You couldn't have someone on the internet and the phone at the same time. And I remember, either mom or my sister being like, hey, I got to call somebody, right? And this creates logistical problems. And it wasn't something you could mindlessly do. You tended to have some kind of specific task or purpose in mind before you booted up this beast. But then broadband internet entered the scene and that friction was removed. Now the process became easy, seamless. You didn't have to wait for videos to load. You just clicked them and they played. Now the information could hit you faster than you could process and react. Now you're surfing the web. No aim in mind, just surfing, letting one interesting thing bring you along to the next interesting thing. Now you could be hooked. It would be one thing if this experience stayed physically connected, to a single fixed location, but the iPhone marked the end of that reality. Now you could access and be accessed anywhere, anytime. The computer became as portable as a little notebook, and that little bump in your pocket became a chronic reminder to you that you were online. Broadband internet and smartphones removed the brakes. Social media tilted the plane. The social instinct is implanted in all men by nature, writes Aristotle in Book 1 of Politics. Humans are political animals, he says. Humans are unproportionally sensitive to social dynamics. It's in our blood. The desire to be socially connected, liked, respected, known, understood. It's one of the strongest, if not the strongest, motives. Like the touch of Midas, social dynamics intensify and enliven whatever they make contact with. In 2006, MySpace surpassed Yahoo and Google to become the most visited website in the US. The smartphone made us chronically aware of our connection to the internet. Social media made us chronically aware of other people's connection. Now, when taking a picture of something interesting or beautiful, we're invited to consider a further decision. Should I share this with others? Now, that sharing process has been designed to be as easy and seamless as possible. It only takes a second. So why not? Everyone is there on the other side, connected. At some point, we pull the trigger on this. We do share something. And our friends are immediately notified on the other end. Andy just posted something. This fact in their consciousness, they either engage with that post out of genuine interest or out of a low-grade social obligation. I don't want to ignore what my friend shared. And what does that do? Suddenly I get notified. Whoa, 10 likes on that thing so soon. My friends must really find this interesting. That's the message, we consciously or subconsciously encode in our minds. And the cycle of responsiveness continues to feed off of itself. The key word in social media really isn't media, it's social. It can be helpful to recognize that this dynamic just described is not limited to what we typically think of when we hear social media. It's at play in all digital communication, email, text messages, phone calls, everything. Before, we might receive a social correspondence in the mail. That physical letter would be a tangible reminder, among many other things, of our responsibility to respond. Maybe it was a heartfelt letter. Maybe it was an invitation to a party. The point is that it stayed on a coffee table or in a little mailbox. It didn't make sounds. It didn't vibrate. It wasn't attached to our hip. We did not touch it when looking up a recipe or setting an alarm or calling our siblings or taking a picture. It was limited, static, isolated. There was a clear line dividing it from us. It's exactly these kinds of limiting lines that dissolved in the second digital revolution. All barriers melted away. With a strong, intentional exercise of a will, they can be rebuilt, but by default, they're gone. The rate at which these tools were adopted is absolutely staggering. Let's take two metrics as an example. The first is the number of cell phone subscribers, and the second is the number of internet users. Okay, in 1990, this is before the second digital revolution, 12.5 million people had cell phones. Okay. That is 0.25% of the world's population. For that second metric, there are 2.8 million internet users, or 0.05 of the world's population. Well, how did these numbers change in the second digital revolution? In 2010, just 3 years into the second digital revolution, internet users jumped from 2.8 million to 1.8 billion. That's a growth from 0.05% of the world's population to 26.6%. Cell phone subscribers skyrockets from 12.5 million to 4 billion. That's a jump from 0.25%, again, of the world's population, not just the US, to 68%. Like steel, trains, and coal in the second industrial revolution, high-speed internet, smartphones, and digital communication combined, forming something like a cognitive colloid that, when agitated by the demands of life, became quicksand. This change accelerated quicker than we could comprehend, and it's taken us all by surprise. Our guard was down. We didn't understand what was happening, but there's still time to recognize the change that has occurred and make the necessary adjustments in our behavior, in our tools, in our physical environment to catch this wave rather than be drowned by it. Just like Henry Gantt, Frederick Taylor, and Henry Foyle, we need to recognize that the playing field has changed and that modern work, how it's defined, how it's organized, how it's executed, it all needs to be systematically studied again in order for us to navigate this intensified period of the information age. Peter Drucker, Stephen Covey, David Allen, these and other great thinkers of the first digital age, they've started the journey for us. They've articulated profound principles that are well worth our time, our attention, and our respect. They are also coming from a simpler time. They were born in the first digital age, and if we view them as totally sufficient blueprints, we will be quickly frustrated with their inability to handle and scale the second digital age. Much like the transition within the industrial age, the raw materials are here. They just need to be synthesized. Peter Drucker has given us principles for time management. David Allen has given us principles for project and action management. James Clear has given us principles for habit management. Cal Newport, in his recent proposing of the attention capital principle, as he put it, in A World Without Email, he's helping bring more attention to, well, attention management. But the raw materials are not just here, they're becoming faster and more sophisticated. Like the Bessemer process for the production of steel, our tools have been upgraded and optimized. Calendars can now be carried in our pockets and synced across people and devices. Well-designed software like Todoist, I am a fan, not an affiliate, has streamlined personal project management. Personal knowledge management, previously an obscure field still in its bud, is now ramping up and entering mainstream consciousness, thanks to books like How to Take Smart Notes, software like Obsidian. I love Obsidian so much. And at the time of this recording, courses like Building a Second Brain and Linking Your Thinking. What's needed now to thrive at this transitional point in the history of work is not just more or not just faster, but what's needed is an integration and habituation. All these fields need to be brought together to complement each other and create a behavioral ecosystem that is greater than the sum of its parts. This is the new form of the art of workflow. Resignation is often a fruit of ignorance. And when we're in the thick of the ecological effects of the second digital revolution, we just feel it all. Under all that pressure, we can adopt the belief that, this is just what life is like now, and accept the numbness and the disorientation. But things can change, and they do change, once we can name and understand the environmental causes of our overwhelm. Suddenly, everything seems less overwhelming. There's a map, not just for escaping, but for thriving. We're right in the middle of a huge historical transition. If we're willing to explore and develop these new emerging fields, then this can be a positive and exciting time for us. Whoa, we've covered an enormous amount of ground in this series so far. If you've appreciated this longer form style of analysis, you can support the continued development of this channel by doing 3 things: liking the video, sharing a genuine thought in the comments, and most importantly, subscribing to the channel. Next week, we will synthesize everything we've covered so far into 3 principles that will serve as pillars on which we can build this art of workflow. See you next week.